Billy Donovan has put together a great resume through the years, and after joining the Chicago Bulls as the new head coach, many were excited. And within a very short period of time, he showed exactly why we should be excited, putting together a very good roster. He traded for a guy, Nikola Vucevic, who was an all-star that year. He brings in DeMar DeRozan, who became an MVP candidate last year, brings in Lonzo Ball, who was pretty much the glue of this roster, as well as Alex Caruso, who really upgraded that defense. He made Zach LaVine better, and he did a whole bunch of things. But the question still arises, is it time for the Bulls to move on from Billy Donovan? That's what I hope to answer in this video right here. So we're going to be going through the good, the bad, and the unfortunate events of Billy Donovan with the Chicago Bulls. So first, let's go ahead and start with the good, because there is good to what Billy Donovan has brought to the Bulls. Now, as mentioned, Billy created a very, very good roster with a big three in Vooch, DeMar, and Zach LaVine, and filled out the rest of the roster very well with, a bunch of guys, young vets, all this. He put together a really, really good roster that worked very well. And early on, he showed that he could be a great level coach for the Bulls, nearly bringing the Bulls to the playoffs in his first year as head coach, and bringing the Bulls to the playoffs last year for the first time since the Jimmy Butler era. With that being said, he also has done a great job outside of that. He brought in free agents and made people want to come to the Chicago Bulls, an area that for a long time no one has really wanted to come to. He gets a guy like DeMar DeRozan to come here over the Lakers. He also brings in Lonzo Ball and a bunch of other guys through free agency and did a great job of that, even bringing in Patrick Beverley through the buyout just about a week ago now. He also is willing to make trades. Although Vooch maybe wasn't the player that we all hoped for when that trade went through, it was still a risk that Billy was able to take. And this past year, Vooch has looked, very solid. Not quite all-star level, but pretty close to that level. He did a great job there. And every single year Billy Donovan has been the coach for the Bulls, they have had an all-star, actually having two last year, of course. Zach LaVine in the first year as Billy was coach, and then Zach and DeMar, and then once again this year with DeMar DeRozan. He's done a great job at also improving Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine was kind of, a good player, and then he becomes an all-star. He's on the fringe of it this past year, nearly a three-time all-star, and Zach LaVine definitely improved a lot because of adding Billy Donovan. All of that being said, he also showed a good level of draftability. And although that's not all on the head coach, you bring in Patrick Williams, who was a rookie team player in his first year. I would assume he was also on the all-rookie team in his first year. And although you haven't seen a whole bunch from Dalen Terry due to the fact that he hasn't needed a whole lot of minutes because the roster has plenty of guard play, when he has played, he's shown decent potential. Billy, as well as the remainder of coaching staff, did a good job through the draft. Now, with all that being said, with all the good that does come with it, there is also bad, and at times it might almost outweigh the good. So let's talk about, bad news bears for Billy Donovan. There's a lot of factors that go into the bad of Billy Donovan. And, his bad is also kind of the reason why he's good, because it does work for him. But because it works for him, he's unwilling to change, and that's the first point. Billy Donovan is unwilling to make a change, whether that's, over a long period of time or in a game. And I think, the game a couple days ago now against the Toronto Raptors really showed just that. He was unwilling to make change throughout the whole game. He entered the game playing small ball, and he ended the game still playing small ball against a Toronto Raptor team that kind of has the guys now to run bigger ball, and they were dominant. When you needed rebounds, you didn't have guys like Drummond out there. You could have potentially ran Drummond and Vooch at the same time to get your rebounds, but he didn't. When you needed defense, you had Patrick Williams sitting on the bench for a long, long time and weren't getting the guys that you needed out there. When you needed length, you weren't using it. And when the offense is going crazy, whether that was in the Toronto game or over the whole year, when the offense for the Bulls isn't working, but the opposite team is doing great offensively, instead of throwing out a defensive-heavy lineup, he just says, well, the offense needs to pick it up. Instead of trying to slow down the other team and then gain momentum again, he just kind of lets it ride. And that's something you can't do. You need to be willing to make those changes, whether that's on the dime or at least at halftime. It doesn't make any sense. And, that Raptors game was by far the worst. I think a lot of Bulls fans, including me, were just extremely agitated with the fact that Patrick Williams was sitting on the bench for nearly 5 whole minutes at the end of the game. It wasn't put in until the last minute when you needed the defense, you needed length, you needed rebounding. That's exactly what Patrick Williams could have brought you, but instead he was on the bench. That doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of point one. Billy Donovan isn't willing to make change throughout games, and that's a huge factor in some of these losses. He also commits to the roster a little bit too much at times, and I think you just saw that at the trade deadline. Billy Donovan had a chance to make some trades, but he didn't. He was one of only 2 teams in the entire league that didn't make a trade. 2 teams. 28 teams were able to make some sort of trade. Whether for better or for worse, they made a trade. And the Bulls really needed it. They're sitting outside of the play-in tournament at this current moment. They really could have took a chance to make the team a lot better and push their way into playoffs. Or, you could even look at it, they could have traded away pieces who maybe weren't going to be on the team next year, or maybe are going to start regressing to make them better long-term, as well as maybe put them in a spot where this offseason looks a bit better, cap-wise, draft-wise, whatever it may be. Instead, they make 0 trades. He sits with the teams and he says, I like how the roster looks. And although the roster does look good, it's just not enough. And he sits with it, and it just doesn't make any sense. And although this roster on paper looks really, really good and they should work, they just really haven't. And he should have taken a risk there at that trade deadline to make a trade. We've already seen him make a trade. Vooch, he made that big time trade. Maybe that kind of bit him in the butt here. Maybe that's why he was a little bit unwilling to do it now. But that could have made a dramatic change through the rest of the season for the Bulls. And, lastly, it appears that he may have lost the locker room, and I'm not quite sure if he's regained it, although the past few games have looked good. I think that might potentially be the Patrick Beverley effect. The team got juice from getting Patrick Beverley, a hometown guy that brings defense and brings what you need to this team, a kind of true point guard for the team, and that could have been enough to get the Bulls back on track. But there were reports that Billy Donovan lost the locker room. There was reports that him and Zach LaVine were butting heads, and I'd say Zach LaVine is the star of this team. He is the face of the franchise, at least at this current moment. And Billy Donovan maybe lost the locker room, and that's a huge, huge bad thing. We just saw it with the Hawks. The Hawks were doing well, but the coach lost the locker room, and although, it had worked for them, they had made the Eastern Conference before. He gets fired and they bring a new coach and it almost immediately clicks. That's a locker room issue, not a team issue. I'm worried that might be what's happening to Billy Donovan here. And lastly, the unfortunate, because there's good, there's bad, but there are things that are out of your control, and that's what unfortunate is. The unfortunate, injuries. They're out of control of everybody, not only the coaches, but also the players themselves. You lose Lonzo Ball, and this team was the number 1 seed in the East when they had Lonzo Ball, and you haven't had him since. And you had to shut him down for the rest of this year, even though you expect him to be back sooner. That's unfortunate. You missed DeMar DeRozan for a time before the All-Star break, and you lose, 6 games in a row because of it. You've seen Zach LaVine go in and out of rotation, and you've had these injuries to big pieces and to smaller pieces, Alex Caruso, that have hindered you in something that is out of Billy's control, but yet you could have worked around it. You could have game planned around it, and we didn't really see that. You also have a tough Eastern Conference, a little bit more difficult than a lot of people expected, especially when Billy Donovan joined the Bulls. The East, for a long time, if we're being honest, was not a great conference. It was dominated by the West. Now, the East has got a lot better. You have high-level, top-level players in the Eastern Conference. Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have great-level players. You have top-level teams. Honestly, I think the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference, maybe even top 3 teams, have the best odds to win the championship over anyone in the West. They're just so good, so dominant. But you've also seen the rest of these teams get better and become very competitive, whether that's through trades, which, Bulls didn't make a trade, or young players improving. We've seen that the Raptors were a young team; they're getting better and better. We've seen many other teams do it, or through free agency. The East is getting tough, and the Bulls didn't make any move. That's kind of unfortunate, but it's also kind of in the bad at the same time. Now, with all that being said, Billy comes with good, comes with bad, and comes with those unfortunate events. The question still arises, what should the Bulls do with Billy Donovan, and what will they do? Because I do kind of think that those are two separate entities. So first, let's cover what the Bulls should do. This is what I think they should do, and honestly, I think would work best. And first step is going to be let the year ride out. Billy Donovan's already here, and he put this roster together, and he is a high-level coach. Let it ride out, see how this plays out. Maybe he makes a push into the playoffs, and that's a great thing if they can make it into the play-in tournament, but maybe he doesn't. Reevaluate at the end of the year. If he doesn't make it with a roster like this, I think you got to fire Billy Donovan. I'm a big fan of Billy. I was a huge, huge fan of the hire when it occurred, but you have a great roster, a high-level roster, and if you can't make the playoffs this year, no matter whom you're missing due to injuries, I think it's time for Billy to go. But if he does make a push for the playoffs, I'm willing to give him a shot if things are able to work out and you can make free agency work and keep the guys you need and all that stuff. Now, what will happen, and like I said, I think these are two very different things. What I think is going to happen, and I've seen it happen far too many times for many different teams, many different sports, is the Bulls are probably going to hold on a little bit too long. No matter what happens this year, and even if you somehow end up in the top part of the lottery, whether you get your pick or not, I think the Bulls are going to hold out hope and keep Billy on the team. You just re-signed him to 5 years in the offseason and slid it under the rug. I think that kind of leans into the fact that, the Bulls really like him, and no matter how this season goes, I think they're going to be willing to give him a chance, and that's going to be a big factor due to injuries. Lonzo Ball missed this whole year, and when Lonzo was healthy, they were the number one team in the Eastern Conference, and I think that is a big factor. Billy's going to push it himself. If Lonzo's on this team is a whole lot better and definitely in the playoffs, so that's probably going to be a big factor in kind of how things play out. And not only that, you just signed him to a 5-year contract, and I don't see the Bulls as a team that are willing to admit that they're wrong, especially this early. 1 year through this contract that you just signed, actually, I don't think you've entered that new contract. I don't think the Bulls are willing to fold. I don't think they're willing to throw in the towel and say, hey, we were wrong, let's fix it now. I think they would rather wait a year and be really proven that they were wrong than say, hey, we messed up now, let's take care of it now. I don't think the Bulls are willing to do that. But with how Billy Donovan and how the team do through the rest of the year are going to be a big factor in this, and I could see it really going either way. But what do you all think? Do you think that the Bulls, one, will be able to make it into the playoffs or not? And do you see Billy Donovan remaining on this team long term, or do you think he's going to be all over after this year? Comment all that down below. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe. It truly means the world to me. And as always, I hope that I was able to teach you guys something today. There's a whole lot of information and it's a whole lot of speculation, but it's still fun to do. I hope that you guys have a great day. Every single day can be a great day if we all just put in the effort. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.